God3 here. So if you've watched my channel for a while, you know I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan. You may also know I've reviewed every Dragon Ball Z movie and the sagas as well as all the OVAs. But hello everybody, Tyrone the God3 here. And I know So anyway, now I feel it's a better time to rewatch those old movies and make proper reviews for these, considering the current circumstances that we're under. So from here, I'm going to watch all of the movies over again. Yes, all of them. And redo reviews that hopefully will better show off my opinions on my favorite series, and hopefully get newcomers interested as well. If you like what you see, leave a like and comment and whatnot. But enough talk. We're hopping right into the first Dragon Ball Z movie, Dragon Ball Z Movie 1, Dead Zone. Real quick here, I want to let you guys know that there'll be spoilers for a movie that came out 31 years ago. But regardless, if you don't want to be spoiled, then check out the movie first, which I'm sure is available somewhere to stream. So without further ado, let's head back to 1989. That's 3 years before I was born. Wow, I'm old. Now, I'm going to say this now because I know people will be frantically typing on their keyboards, only 3 of the movies are canon, which I get. However, for the sake of the storytelling and the place of the movie itself, I'll be giving my take on when I feel chronologically the movies take place. I get that there's contradictions, like for example in Tree of Might, Goku and the gang are all together, but Goku can't turn Super Saiyan yet. So it feels like it should be before Frieza, yet somehow Yamcha, Tien, Chaozu, and Piccolo are still alive. So I'll do my best to explain my views on when the movies take place. Don't take this to heart, it's just how I prefer to do things to fully enjoy my movie experience. That being said, the movie in particular takes place at the very beginning of Dragon Ball Z, right before Raditz shows up. Chronologically, the movie doesn't have that many contradictions, aside from Krillin being introduced to Gohan a little earlier than the others at the beginning of the series. So thankfully, the movie takes a lot from the Raditz fight, even though it takes place before the Raditz fight chronologically. Anyway, the plot is this. Piccolo gets ambushed and beaten near death by a group of people known as the Spice Boys, led by an evil demon known as Garlic Jr. Garlic's goons go off on a search for the Dragon Balls and find Gohan because he has the 4-star ball on his hat. A common problem when putting a plot MacGuffin on your son's head, I'm sure. So they kidnap Gohan, and Garlic feels he can use Gohan's latent potential to serve under his rule someday, so he keeps him. Gohan as a toddler is scared but curious, so hilarity ensues, while he's under Garlic's wing. Goku finds out about this and runs over to Kame's house to use the Dragon Radar to search for Gohan. This leads him to Garlic Jr.'s base, where he meets up with Kame. Kame tells Goku that Garlic Jr. is one of the sons of Garlic, who attempted to be the ruler of the Earth years ago, but to no surprise was too evil, so he was rejected by the former Guardians of Earth and banished to another dimension. Years later, Garlic had a son, and here we are. Goku, not really caring about the lore that's going on here, goes off to fight the Spice Boys and get Gohan back. Goku's outnumbered until Krillin and Piccolo show up. With the odds a little more even, Goku takes out 2 of the guys while Piccolo takes out 1. Then Piccolo proceeds to fight Garlic Jr. himself, mostly for revenge after getting ambushed. Garlic Jr. later explains to Kame that earlier he used the 7 Dragon Balls to wish for immortality and thus can't die. Piccolo's plan, to torture him, to near death, so he wished he was dead. Anyway, Goku joins Piccolo in the fight, and Garlic Jr. then transforms. When Goku and Piccolo get serious and combine their forces, they beat Garlic Jr., or so it seems. Garlic Jr., being a sore loser, decides to open up a portal to the Dead Zone, a large demonic hellscape that anyone, including himself, can and will be trapped in for all of eternity. When all hope seems lost, Gohan bursts into a fit of rage, and his hidden power is enough to knock Garlic Jr. back into the Dead Zone and save the day. Goku, confused by what just happened, is surprised Gohan doesn't remember anything, so he decides he'll just tell Gohan about the events that took place when he's a little older. For the first Dragon Ball Z movie, I actually really love the pacing and utilization of characters here. No one felt wasted, and the movie focuses on each character's primary role in the plot. For example, the use of Kami in this movie is really well done here because it's clear that aside from saving Gohan, a much bigger story is unfolding, which definitely gives the movie depth. Kami's position of God of Earth has always been an interesting concept that I liked even as a kid. While the main series and manga just briefly skim over such a high rank, this movie, as well as the filler saga this movie is based on, really gave us a bit of history that expands on the Dragon Ball world. Are they pivotal to Goku and Gohan in the series? Directly, no, but they do build the world that they live in and help flesh out a better context in which I'm watching the movie or the series in itself. That being said, I will say a lot of this movie really rides on the idea that you've seen or at least know about Dragon Ball. Having a runtime of about 42 minutes, the movie goes straight into the meat of the plot, with hopes that the people watching are at least somewhat familiar with the Dragon Ball concept, more specifically, the Dragon Ball series prior to Dragon Ball Z, as most of the references are from Goku and Piccolo's previous encounter in the 24th Tenkaichi Budokai. But even with its 42-minute runtime and large amount of action, the movie does take moments for needed beats that lead to the climax. Things like Gohan's hallucinations after eating the demon fruit, Goku talking with the others while Gohan getting kidnapped, and the villains, while not as memorable as later DBZ villains, do have funny varieties and characteristics, like when they say "Hail Garlic Jr." and Goku shouts out "Return Gohan," only for them to chant "Return Gohan" right after. Little touches like that give the movie its charm. Now, I do want to talk about Garlic Jr., since his actions are what makes up the plot of the movie, and he carries with him a big controversy in his actions that ironically lead to his own downfall. Garlic Jr.'s knowledge of the world in itself often intrigues me, especially given now the movie has a rewatch. When Gohan mentions his dad as Goku, Garlic Jr. immediately recognizes him as the winner of the 24th Tenkaichi Budokai I mentioned earlier. That always caught my interest. Has Garlic Jr. just been studying the events that have taken place up to now and chosen not to act? Or was he planning on what happened when he picked up the intel? It's interesting use of dialogue that doesn't get tackled a lot after, but I'm guessing that's because of either the runtime or the fact that it wasn't the main focus of the plot. Winner of the World Martial Arts Tournament is a big deal, so it's not a surprise that Goku would be known for such a feat like that. I just find the villain of the movie knowing that with no prior meeting with Goku interesting because it shows how much Garlic Jr. knows about the world he's trying to conquer. Another thing I like is how efficient Garlic Jr. actually is. Rather than straight up killing Gohan after getting the Dragon Ball, Garlic Jr. chooses to keep Gohan as a potential minion. This is because he's already aware of Gohan's hidden power, so it's good to see a villain acknowledge the resources before him. Granted, that ultimately leads to his defeat, but regardless, it's cool to see a villain take advantage of what he has. Speaking of his defeat, now I gotta talk about it. The Dead Zone itself. The thing that basically beats the unbeatable villain. Now, I've watched this movie a decent number of times, and only recently have I questioned the logic of using the one attack that can otherwise beat an antagonist that is immortal. A lot of people watching the movie nowadays will say, "Oh my god, Garlic Jr. is so dumb. Why would he use a move that can trap himself when he's immortal?" And yeah, from the outside looking in, that does seem dumb. But several elements I took into account when watching this movie take place, and you gotta look at them from the movie's perspective. Because of that, I thought of several in and out of universe reasons why this decision was made for Garlic Jr. to ultimately defeat Garlic Jr. Now, we'll get this one out of the way because it's the out-of-universe reason. The movie's 42 minutes long and they wanted to find a way to beat the villain fast. Having Garlic Jr. get immortality, then losing it in the same movie does seem kind of silly when written on paper, but they wanted Garlic Jr. to utilize the Dragon Balls. Remember, even though Goku is the main character, he has the least involvement in the plot overall. It's mostly a feud between Garlic Jr. and Kami, but to get Goku in the plot, Goku needed a drive, that being Gohan. Gohan carries with him the 4-star ball, so it only makes sense that the villains would make him a target. But they couldn't get the Dragon Balls and just do nothing with them, so to make Gohan's kidnapping justifiable, Garlic Jr. uses the Dragon Balls to make himself immortal. Now, from a threatening standpoint, this also heightens the danger of the situation. Having a villain that can't die really makes the audience go, well, how the hell are they gonna stop him? Now, normally this would require Goku and company to get creative when dealing with an immortal threat, but as we see later in Dragon Ball Super, they can't do that well. So at least here we get to see Garlic Jr. make a dead zone that can suck everyone into the Hell Dimension. While not the smartest plan, does seem like a manageable plot device the writers can use to get themselves out of a corner. Now, as for the in-universe reason, while the plan to make a dead zone is pretty dumb, you gotta remember a few things. Garlic Jr. just got his immortality powers in this movie. He probably used the dead zone attack on a lot of enemies he found himself unable to beat in battle. Remember, in the fight, even when he was transformed, Garlic Jr. couldn't beat Goku and Piccolo with their weights removed. Under that logic, if there's an easy way to get rid of them, then he probably took it into hell with the consequences. Literally. This to me is just Dragon Ball Z's fashion too. Dealing with villains that get frustrated with something they can do drastically. From Vegeta turning into a great ape after losing a beam struggle with Goku, to Frieza using the Death Ball in Planet Name's core after he was beaten by Super Saiyan Goku, to Cell blowing up islands after Tien distracted him from finding Android 18. This isn't out of fashion for villains to do something potentially dumb when upset in the heat of the moment, so I was never really ultimately bugged by it. Overall, I really love this movie. From the fluid fight choreograph we see in this and the next movie, to the small things like Chi-Chi attempting to fight one of the Spice Boys at the beginning, which to me is a nice little touch. The movie's real enemy is its runtime. Even though Dragon Ball was a well-established and popular series at this point, it was clear they didn't want to invest a large bulk of runtime into this movie just in case it flops. Anime movies back then were expensive and took more work. So my guess is they worked with what they knew and played with it to see if it would take off. It's also clear that the movie was made to advertise Dragon Ball Z, as like I mentioned earlier, the fighting against Garly Jr. versus Goku Piccolo takes large notes from Goku and Piccolo versus Raditz. But that being said, aside from the fight, the movie is creative and gets to the point. There's beats in the action, but never to a point where it drags. The movie has a small cast, but it's not just centered around Goku. The villains have lore, but isn't too overly complicated. Again, this movie is primarily from fans of already established Dragon Ball series. So while newcomers may not find much context in this movie, it does still maintain a level of entertainment that can grab attention and as a bonus isn't so long. So sitting through it isn't a chore. Now for a ranking, I'm going to give these movies a ranking from 1 star to 7 stars, like the Dragon Balls themselves, 1 being the worst and 7 being the best. And for this one, I'm giving a solid 6. It's good, it's got lore, comedy, action, and uses its time well. My only gripe with the movie is its small runtime, which could have been used for more exploration in the movie, and the fact that the movie more or less relies on you being well versed in the world of Dragon Ball. So it's hard for me to follow a movie that has no context if I'm not a Dragon Ball fan. Now, for some small knowledge about my personal experience with this movie. As a kid, when I watched Dragon Ball, Funimation Dub was the series that I used to watch all the time. I started watching it back then on Funimation Dub. But the first 3 movies didn't get dubbed yet, so when I watched Dragon Ball Z Dead Zone, I only saw it in the Ocean Dub. I wouldn't watch Funimation Dub until much later when I bought the Dragon Ball Z Movie Collection pack. Even though I'm actually a fan of the dub and have grown accustomed to the Funimation dub, I always prefer to watch this movie and the second movie, World's Strongest, in Ocean dub. I don't know, something about the sound effects with the punches crunch more, and the villains sound like old 90s cartoon villains. Really sets the tone for me. And speaking of the second movie, when we return, we'll review Dragon Ball Z Movie 2, The World's Strongest. So, till then, I'll see you all then, everybody. Tyrone the God 3, out.